Good Monday morning, Set to Love community. My name is Eva Payne. Welcome to this wonderful podcast today. Alicia Ayala is a transformational life coach. She's become one of my good friends, and she's definitely one of my most favorite people to interview, and you're going to see why. Because today we are talking about switching out of autopilot into an intentional life, and she's got a bunch of tips and ideas and things for you. So stay tuned. Here we go.
My name is Eva Payne. Welcome to The Flow Life, where we define love as live open, value everything. On this podcast, you are dialed in and set to love. Let's go for a ride.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I love having you, even from your vacation all the way down there in Florida.
I know. Thank you for having me. And I told my family, hey, I'm going to be on a podcast today. So they are out exploring while I'm doing a little bit of work and hanging with you. I love coming on and hanging with you. So this is not work.
This is definitely not autopilot. This is very intentional work we're doing here today.
It is. I agree.
Okay, well, I just am assuming people know who you are. So just in case they don't, do you want to give a little background about yourself and the work that you do? And then let's jump into this topic. I can't wait to get into it with you.
Yes. So hello, everyone. My name's Alicia Ayala. I'm a transformational life coach. I am what I call also a corporate leaper. I leapt from corporate America. I wanted to live a different life, a life of freedom. And, as Eva just said, living in intention and living more aligned to who I am. So I help corporate high achieving corporate women who are on autopilot, going through the motions of life, feeling unsatisfied in certain parts of their life, reconnect to who they are, and rediscover they're happy. And I'm also a writer, a speaker, and love hanging with Eva Payne.
I love it. I got to tell you the story yesterday. My sons play flag football, my younger three, and Avery, one of the twins, he's 10 years old, and he said to me, Mom, if you had $20 million, what would you do? And instinctively, without even saying anything, I said, well, I did say something. I said, you know what, Avery, I wouldn't change anything. I love everything I do. And that just reminded me of our topic today, like really having a life that even if you had $20 million in the bank, you really wouldn't change that much because every day you're doing something that you love, you're contributing to the world. And I think ultimately that's the dream. It's not the money, it's not the stuff, it's doing something that you really love.
Okay, I love what you just said. Absolutely. Because you know what? I had a similar experience recently. And, so I have been feeling like, it's been a year since I left from corporate. There are days, when you're living intentionally, when you're living, differently than maybe what you planned, there are days when you're like, oh my gosh, okay, am I where I want to be, right? You're checking in with yourself. And there are days when I'm like, okay, it's been a year. Is this like, I can't believe this is a life I'm living, and I absolutely love it. So I wouldn't change a thing, and it's hard. Jumping to be an entrepreneur, it is not easy. And I think it's so important for us to, check in with, just be honest about your feelings. So I was messaging with somebody who is still in corporate, and nothing wrong with corporate, right? But this person has also been sort of reassessing, am I where I want to be? And he said the most amazing thing to me. He said, if you look at KPI, this is, I forget what KPI stands for, but it's a measurement that most companies use to measure success. And he said, I think if I were to measure the KPI of your life right now, I would say you're a 10 out of 10. He's like, you're living and doing exactly what you want to do on your own terms. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is yes. It is. So I love what I'm doing. I love where I'm at. And I love that I'm constantly growing and, I'm constantly pivoting, just like today.
Mm-hmm. You know what? And Alicia, I do want to point out what you said, being that it's not just because you're doing what you love doesn't make it easy. It's still going to be challenging, but you're excited about the challenges or you feel invigorated to figure it out. like you hit those roadblocks and you're like, it doesn't matter. I just got to figure out a way around or over or under, or how do I mold this? How do I change this? It's not like, oh, forget it. What am I doing? You know, I don't know how it is. Do you feel that same way when you get to those challenges, that it's something like, let's master this. Let's figure this out.
Yeah, I do. I think that when you're passionate about the life that you're living, and when you hit those moments of uncertainty or problems, you're just like, okay, this is just a part of it and I've got to go figure it out. And as a solo entrepreneur, you're constantly running up against those things, right? Where something new pops in and you have to go, okay, I've got to just figure it out. And it's fun. And again, I'm not saying that those times aren't also very challenging, where you're like, you know, how am I going to figure it out? And you're just like, you know, having these moments. But it's also just like, I love what I'm doing. So it's not hard, even though it might be a challenge. It's just like, okay, I'm going to figure this out.
It's like the small wins carry you so much further than if you were in a job that you didn't like and then you had a small win. You're just like, great, yay, I turned that thing in on time, or I made that sale, or whatever, right? Like I made it through the day. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about being on autopilot and where this idea of being on autopilot even came up for you.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I recognized it at several points in my life where I realized I was on autopilot. In 2016, and I think I've probably shared this story on here, so I'm not going to go into the whole story, but in 2016, I found myself, you know, postpartum, 6 months, I was depressed. I was not in a good place. And I found happiness by looking at my 6-month-old and realizing like, oh my gosh, I have a happy life, but I have a great life, but I'm not happy. What's wrong with me? So I spent 6 months trying to find my way back to happy, right? So that was my first thing. And what I realized was, oh my gosh, like I just am not living a life aligned to who I am. And so I made some adjustments. I figured out more about who I was, realigned to who I was. But then fast forward, I started living that life, which I was in corporate. I was, you know, on this fast track to becoming a CIO. And that's what I wanted, right? That is what I had decided in 2016 that I needed. And then I found myself in 2018 starting to second guess that decision. I started
wait, pause really quick. So if you're like, I just want to try to bring this in for people. So you're in the corporate world. You think climbing the corporate ladder is what is most in alignment for you. What was it inside of you 2 years down the road that made you go, oh my gosh, no, this is not what I thought it was going to be, or I'm not feeling that meaning or purpose or connection or whatever it is that you were sort of hoping that being on that track would give you? How would someone else recognize that for themselves, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yep. So honestly, it was these moments. It wasn't even anything big. It was these moments of feeling really numb and disconnected from my life. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. Like, again, fast forward 2 years, right? I'm 2018 and I'm living the life now that I had redefined for myself that I thought would make me happy. And I would find myself sitting at dinner and I was just like, I was eating, but like not really there. So my family's there. I have this great life. We live in a great house, but I wasn't there. You know, and I would find myself in these moments of, again, what I would call being numb and very disconnected. And I'm like, okay, am I just tired? Because I was working a lot. Am I just, you know, so it would be those moments. And I will tell you, and I talk to a lot of women who feel the same way, these moments where I would just say, okay, you know what, in a couple of years, I'll feel better. Next month, when I get more sleep, when I get the next promotion, when I get that new package, when we move to the new house, it would always be this, and it was very materialistic. When I have this thing, I will be happy. I will feel better. So it would be these moments of like feeling very disconnected and almost like, I kind of liken it to a top. I felt like I was just spinning and couldn't really see, you know, like I was almost dizzy and just like so disconnected from my life. And that's how I would describe it. And I actually have a quote that I want to share with you guys that I heard from David Grogan's book, Can't Hurt Me. And he says, I was on a spoon-fed path of least resistance. And I feel like that is like a perfect sentence of what autopilot feels like. It's like where you're in comfort. So for me at that time, I was in comfort. Even though I was on this path of like working towards a CIO, I was on a path of comfort. When I finally decided to leave in 2020, I realized that, like, and that feeling of being disconnected from myself and who I am, it kept getting stronger. So for those of you out there, like maybe wondering, like, what does it feel like? Is that what this feels like in my life? It continues to get stronger. You continue to feel these moments, but they're closer together, so that's what happened for me. They kept like, it was maybe, once a month for, I would recognize it. Then all of a sudden it was just like, oh my gosh, it was like every week I was recognizing, and I was so aware and awake to this feeling of, I don't think I'm living the life that I'm supposed to. Like, I don't think I'm where I'm supposed to be, even though from society's perspective, my life looks great. And I also think that's another piece. I think sometimes we take on what society says we should have and want, or what society says success should look like, and we never question it. We don't actually ask ourselves, what do I want? What do I want to experience? Until something happens.
And so what was that thing that happened for you?
So it was the pandemic. It was, 2020, I think is, the first part of 2020 is when everything sort of shut down. And for me, it was that moment. So like, I kept having these moments of like, oh my gosh, I want a different life. I want more freedom. I want to be an entrepreneur. Like, this would come up, but I'm like, but I'm on this path, and, and it was comfortable. It was so much more comfortable being on the path that's outlined for me with title and money and benefits, and yay, that was really easy. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit. I'm sitting at home and I'm like, this is definitely like, I cannot, like, this is not the life that I want. Mm-hmm. And so when it makes sense, I'm going to put in my notice. It was really hard to do it at first because I had a team of 18 people and I really wanted to get them through, everything that was going on, all the changes, all the shifting. And you just didn't know early in 2020 what was going to happen, right? We didn't know how things were going to look. And so it wasn't until July that I put my notice in. So it took me several months, but it was the pandemic. It was this moment of, I think, an awakening. And I think many people are feeling that probably over the pandemic, right? But also now as companies are bringing people back to work, that is like this moment of triggering for many people that, oh my gosh, is this what I want? And when I say going back to work, going back to the office, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's still working through this, but when you're being asked to come back to the office, it's a moment of questioning, right? What do I want for my life? What do I want to experience? Yeah. So for me, it was the pandemic and just this whole, this moment of pause that allowed me to really ask myself several key questions, some of which I just gave you guys, right? Like, what do I want to experience in my life? And that it wasn't what I was doing was not what I wanted to experience.
Right. Yeah, I think that's happening for a lot of people right now. I was just talking to a nurse. She's a year older than me, and she was interested in coming to one of the retreats I'm hosting. And so I was asking her about her life, and she was saying that this pandemic just really, she spent. She was an ER nurse forever. Then she went into admin, and she just says, I just see the way the system's working. It was like the pandemic gave her a chance to step back and sort of look at the big picture of everything. And she realized, like, she doesn't really believe in the work that she's doing anymore. It's like it works sort of against the people. And she's trying to figure out, like, how do I find myself again? I've done all this schooling. I have all this expertise, but what is next for me? And she sees it clear as day. She knows she cannot stay where she's at because literally it's taking a toll on her mental health. Like she was talking about how much more she was drinking or, other challenges that she was having. And it was like she was just numbing herself to the pain of having to be in this job that was cushy. She got paid a lot of money, but it's like, for what? And so that phase right there, that like figuring out what's next, what do I want to do, what a scary place to be, especially if you're, in your mid 40s and you've just spent 20 years of your life
Oh my
building
goodness.
yourself up to this
Yes.
place, and now you're like, I'm gonna walk away from all of that and just start over like a college graduate, like just out here in the world. Like what do you tell someone at that phase if they know, if they're like this gal that I talked to who's like, I know I need to do something else. I'm just afraid, or I don't even know what direction to go, but I no longer want to live in that autopilot.
Yeah. And you know what? You just brought up something really important that I just want to touch on, because I think this is what happens to a lot of people when we're in this space of being disconnected from our lives. One of the things that I feel like is super common, and I was doing it, is we start giving ourselves alcohol as almost a treat for surviving our week. Like when you start numbing and giving yourself a reward of alcohol, I mean, that is a sign, right? Like maybe you're not happy with your life. And that was something that I was doing for sure right before I put in my notice. It was like, and my alcohol kept increasing. It was like, oh, it's Wednesday, I had a bad day, or it was Tuesday. I mean, it kept increasing. So if you are finding yourself in a space where you're rewarding yourself with alcohol or other coping mechanisms, like those are signs. But to answer your question, like, it is hard. I think it's hard to live a life aligned to who you are. And I don't want to sugarcoat or make it seem like it's so easy, just, jump ship. Cause it wasn't. For me at all. It was heartburn, right? I was 22 years in corporate America. I was 41. I had been building my career to this point. I was up for a VP role, and to leave all of that, it's a questioning of your own identity at such a pivotal point in your life where you feel like at 41, for me, I felt like right at 41, you have it figured out, and you kind of feel like, I think of my parents, right? They were on autopilot like their whole life, and you like, I don't know. I feel like that's what we're shown, that's what life is. And life is, I think we have to choose, right? Are we going to live a life in comfort and just go with emotions, go along with what our friends are doing, what our coworkers are doing. And that's what I was doing. So I'm speaking from my heart here on what was happening to me. That was so much easier than deciding who am I as a person. And so I think like one of the first things that any of us can do, when no matter what profession you're in, if you think about the workplace outside of entrepreneurship, you're getting all this training on, whatever your field is. You're getting training on, like where I was, leadership, communication skills, all of these great things. The one thing that they never teach you in any of these settings, whether it's medical or corporate, they don't teach you about yourself. They don't teach you about connecting to you. They don't teach you about like, what are your core values? Who are you as a person? And that is something that every single one of you has to do. So if you're finding yourself in a space of, I'm not sure what to do, or this woman who was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? If you reconnect to who you are in a very intentional way and ask her, and just like, and I'm talking, so like, what does that look like? This is doing exercises like journaling every day and really getting clear on who you are. Because if you're clear on who you are, when you make a change, you will feel so much more empowered and confident. And you will feel like what Eva was talking about earlier. If I have a challenge, I'm just going to figure it out. I got this. But when we are disconnected from who we are disconnected from our power, from our confidence, from our truest identity. It's hard to get connected to that power of like what's available to us. So that's what I would say. And I have a freebie to tell you guys about at the end here that can help with just reconnecting to who you are.
I love that. That's really important. Thank you. And thank you for offering that to people. One of the things that I was talking to this gal about was, I said, think about why you got into the healthcare profession to begin with. Like what was where's the roots of like what you really cared about? And somewhere along the path, it just got convoluted and transformed into something that you didn't want. So if you do even care about being in the healthcare profession, like, is that still the field of work you still want to do? And then what else could that look like? So maybe it's not even working at a hospital at all. Maybe it's something totally different. Maybe you create a product that helps people. Maybe, I'm like, the roads are endless. And so it's really about dreaming so big. So I think going to those values, like you said, what are the things you stand for? What is it that you want to contribute to the world? And then going big with it. Like, what could it look like? And does that feel daunting to you? I said, do you want to launch she talked about bath bombs. We were talking about that and how that kind of changed things for her. I said, well, do you want to start your own bath bomb company? Do you want employees? Do you want a product that you have to figure out how to make and sell? Does that sound interesting to you? Or does that seem like, oh, forget it? Do you want to be a traveling nurse? Do you want to do it this way? Do you want to
There's so many options, like you said.
So how did you know, and how do people know, this will be my last question, where to transition to? So let's say, okay, like I know my values. I think I do. I think I know what I want, and it's not this. Where do you start to explore how you get out there? I mean, you decided coaching was going to be your world. How would someone else find out what space they would be most excited to at least try and attempt? Maybe that's not their thing, but it's like, let's give this a go.
So I think what you just described, one of the things that I do with my clients is this idea of dreaming again, creating something called a personal vision. So Richard Boyatzis, and I don't have his information right here in front of me, but he is really big in the organizational development. So he's a psychologist, he's got a PhD, but his philosophy is that we need, as humans, we have to have a personal vision or some sort of dream. And when we have this personal vision or dream laid out for us, and it doesn't have to be for the forever dream or the forever personal vision. It just has to be like, what do I want to do in the next year, right? And then what happens is when you have this personal vision, you actually turn on a portion of your brain that's called the oh my gosh, I did not write. I wasn't planning on talking about this, so I don't have my notes in front of me. But the personal attractor network, I'm probably butchering this. I'm so sorry, you guys. So, but it turns on this portion of your brain that allows you to be innovative. It allows you to be creative. It allows you to, so if you're coming from a place of visioning, it creates expansiveness. And a lot of his research, so this is like 30 years of research, a lot of his research, like this ties into the manifesting, right? What you want, because you are opening yourself up to opportunities. It also ties into the reticular activating system. Sorry for all these acronyms, but when we decide, so like when I chose, I'm going to go for coaching, right? That's what I want to do. I want to help women. I want to, like, when I decided that, suddenly it was really interesting because all of a sudden I kept seeing all these opportunities. And I know that you guys have been in this position before where the reticular activating system has become apparent to you without you even knowing it. So when you decide to go out and buy a white Honda Pilot, suddenly you realize like, oh my gosh, there are a million white Honda Pilots. And even like a month ago, you may not have seen them. This is your reticular activating system, which you can leverage yourself by simply creating a personal vision and getting really clear. And my point with this is, this allows you to see opportunities that you would not normally be able to see. And when you start to see opportunities, I think it's about brainstorming, writing those things down. What sounds interesting to you? What aligns with you? And again, you don't have to be, and like thinking about, you don't have to be married to it forever. I think sometimes we think, especially when we get out of a 22-year career or a 20-year career, 15 years, however long, like, okay, I have to make a decision and it has to be something that I'm going to do now for the next 20 years. No, it doesn't. You're going to take one step and you're going to figure out, is this what it is? And it might not be. And then you can check it off and you're going to move and do something else. The point though is to continue to evolve, take steps, because then you're going to find the thing that speaks to your heart, that opens you up to all of the possibilities and gifts that you have, and to do something amazing in this world that aligns to who you are.
That is so powerful. And honestly, being flexible is such a key, such an important component of the sort of figuring out what is next for you.
Yes.
So, I think like, oh my gosh, I want to start retreats. Like, this is what I want to do. And the idea, it was clear as day. The whole thing dropped in like a day. I could see it all. But then it's like, as I start now working with it and putting it into the world and doing this, I can already see that it's sort of adjusting and molding and whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I might, execute it 5 times and go, yeah, nah, I don't think that's what I want to do. Or I might go, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. I want to do this every month. So it's just being open to what it's going to look like. But you're so right about like when you're open, everything just drops and all of a sudden the right people start to come in, the connections start to come in. You start seeing things that you would never have seen before. And then if you can just be willing to be open to what it actually looks like or who might come in with you as a partner or someone who might be able to guide you or mentor you. There's so many people out there that can assist in your journey. You don't have to do it alone.
You don't have to do it alone. One other thing I just want to mention is that fear is going to come in. Fear is what is going to be the thing that pops into your head. Like you might get super clear and then you're like, oh, but I don't know what I'm doing. It's okay. So I want to encourage you to take messy action and literally take fear by the hand. And I know that sounds scary, but fear is not real. Fear is based on your belief system, based on experiences that have happened. And we don't have enough time to talk about that, but I should come back and we should talk about that. But if you are feeling fear, what I want to challenge you to do is take a step forward and do it anyway. Because one of the things that you are going to find is, oh, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
That's so beautiful. Alicia Ayala. Okay, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook. Primarily right now, I've been spending a lot of time on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram. But you will find me, if you see my name here, I am its_Alicia_Ayala. And I want to offer your group here, this all of the people watching, the 5 days to rediscover your empowered self. And if you go to, and you've got my link tree there, so it's linked right there. It's a free guide, and this will really help you with this idea of rediscovering who you are. It challenges you to think about things that you may not have thought about. So I encourage you to go check it out, download it. It's free.
You're awesome. Thank you so much for doing that and for providing it. And just for coming on the show today. I love hanging out with you. You're an amazing person. I love the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being bold and brave in your choice to get out there and help women as they transition out of corporate life and into a life that they love, a life that they're excited to wake up to every day, to challenges that maybe invoke a little fear, but it's more of that roller coaster fear than like, oh my gosh, my life is falling apart. What am I going to do fear?
Oh, that is so beautiful. Yes, I love that.
Doesn't it feel like that? It feels like, oh, here we go. We're going on the down part. Hopefully.
That is such a good visual.
That's what I feel like. I'm like, okay, this is like it's a fun fear. I'm as fun as a roller coaster, depending. Thank you so much, Alicia. I appreciate you and I love you so much. And thanks everyone for being here today on Set to Love. Please share this if there's someone in your life that you know is on autopilot, that you see the choices that they're making or just bringing them down and they don't feel like super connected to who they are, or you see that spark in them starting to dwindle. Share this episode. Reach out to Alicia. She's an amazing coach. She's an amazing human and she cares so much. And she's a good friend of mine now. And all because of this, all because I said yes to some crazy idea of starting a podcast. I get to meet cool people like her. And so do you. So thank you so much, everyone. I love you, Alicia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy Florida. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.